Hey, everyone out there. I decided I am going to speak very slowly today, and this will take a long time, but in the interest of thoroughness. No, everybody. Hey, how you doing, everybody out there? So it's great to see you. It is awesome to see you. Yes, I know that we were together just 24 hours ago, but we are in momentous times. You may say you could say we are definitely in momentous times in the Son of Sam case, and in fact, probably the most exciting time. Well, since the Neto revelations, which of course were much more exciting to me, I think, than most of the rest of the world. But I think in due time, especially given what we're learning with these newly unearthed Queen's DA recordings, I think that we here at True Crime are in an excellent position to capitalize, in a sense, because, well, these tapes, in my opinion, are devastating to Maury Terry's cult theory. It's just that's just the long and short of it. But we'll get into all that. Today is a very special day. We are going to be talking about Wheat Carr. Yes, finally, we have some audio of Wheat Carr to listen to, and we're going to listen to it together, all 47 minutes and 11 seconds of it, where we're just going to listen, enjoy ourselves. I'm going to do reactions in real time. I'm not going to wait till the end and then react. I'm going to pause it, react. Hopefully we'll have a fun time. You guys can react. You guys can call in. To that end, I'm going to put in the chat right now the call-in link. Don't do it until we start the actual don't do it until we start the actual tapes today. But I want to say hello to all my people out there. We got Lazarus, we got Harrison, we got May Brussel, we got Moet, we got Lydia, we got Agent 99, we got May Brussel, we got Nikos, Mas, Lydia, Maureen, Eric, Betty, the gang is all here. Ruby, of course, Dave, Brer Rabbit, hey, J.A., what's going on, Dave Moth? Always good to see you. And so that's where I'm going to end it today, because if I just don't have time to thank everybody. So anyhow, so I always talk about morphic resonance. Well, Eric talks about morphic resonance. I talk about the psychic wave, and it's happening again, folks. Today, I was gardening. 800 Grand Concourse, and kneeling down, picking out Gladystia tricanthos out of the ground, these little babies that vex my life down there because they won't get rid of a weed tree that I've been telling them to get rid of for years now. But all of a sudden I hear, hey, nice job. The garden looks beautiful. So I turn around, I say, thank you very much. The guy starts talking to me, an elderly gentleman, but sharp as a tack, well-dressed, super friendly. And he was very intelligent. He started talking about how garden design's an art form and how you have to do this and that and have a careful eye. And I was vibing with him. And then, I don't know, for some reason, he told me that he was a detective, a former detective. And so I said, oh, you're kidding. I do this thing on Son of Sam and everything. And he goes, Son of Sam, I used to know a detective here in the Bronx that worked on Son of Sam. Italian guy, late 70s. What was his name? I said, Chinati. He goes, yeah, Chinati. That was it. Yes, we were friends. Yes. I said, he goes, do you know him? I said, yeah, I know him. I interviewed him. I was at his 80th birthday party. So anyway, it turns out that this guy, Detective Ralph Nieves, is a sort of a legend in his own right. He's a very famous polygrapher. He gives lie detector tests. He's very well known. And it turns out that he has done extensive work on a ex-NYPD by the name of Bill Phillips. If you look that guy's name up, it's an extremely interesting story going back to the early 70s. And of course, I then got very excited because I remember Mike Codella telling me that he was interested in the Bill Phillips story because supposedly Bill Phillips was in jail with Berkowitz, and the two of them talked a lot, and Bill Phillips might have information. So the psychic wave, it's like my gardening life and my true crime life are starting to meld now. It's really amazing. So anyhow, Listen, we got a lot to do today, so I don't want to go all night. I don't want to go 2 or 3 hours. Why don't we just get started on today's presentation, shall we? Wheat Carr and the Queen's DA. And by the way, if my audio is too hot, please tell me. If it's too low, please tell me. I want to make sure that everything is perfect. I can't hear myself. It's weird, but so if there's any issues, let me know. Wheat Carr and the Queen's DA. Now, of course, Wheat Carr. Seen here with the famous Harvey, the black Labrador retriever. Actually looks pretty nice here, I have to say. There's something about Wheat Carr in this picture that I'm kind of liking. But Wheat Carr, of course, the daughter of the famous Sam Carr of 316 Warburton Avenue, whose dog Harvey was blamed for talking to David Berkowitz and spurning the Son of Sam case. Now, we all know that that story is complete crap. Okay, we all know that. I think we all agree here as modern Son of Sam researchers that the talking dog story didn't really hold much water, right? And of course, we all came into this thinking that Maury Terry was essentially God, right? That he got everything right and that his research was everything perfect. And according to Maury Terry, in not necessarily in the book, although there were innuendos in the book, but it really kind of got nasty sort of towards the 90s. And then the innuendos I read about Wheat Carr, shooter of Virginia Voskerichian, right? According to David Berkowitz, who told Maury, who told Hank Gennady, who told Eric Galati. But probably Maury told David Berkowitz that. Maury agreed with him, and then that's how that game of telephone started. Of course, commonly thought of as the getaway driver in Moskowitz, okay, which, well, I mean, no evidence. And of course, Sam Carr here with the famous Harvey at, I guess this is, I'm not quite sure where this is. This is probably 316 Warburton Avenue. They have a very beautiful hydrangea paniculata back here. So Sam Carr at least had some taste in horticulture, although this lawn, and he could have done a little bit better work over here. Actually, this is the front yard now that I'm looking at it. This is the front. All right. And of course, the sister of John Carr, who is the subject of all of our discussions lately with these North Dakota transcripts. And of course, the sister of Michael Vale Baron de Charnowski Carr. And you notice how I'm no longer calling John by the moniker that I've called him for so many months now, and I'm no longer having a fun time with Michael Vale Baron de Charnowski's name. Even though Moet, I want to make you happy out there, but the simple fact is, I no longer think of these people as involved in Son of Sam. Yes, there, I've said it. I have said it. I have come out as the first modern Son of Sam researcher to come out of the closet, in a sense, and say that the Carrs most likely, okay, there's always that little sliver of doubt, always there in a Son of Sam researcher. But I am 99.99999% sure, very close to 100% sure, that the Carrs were innocent victims of Son of Sam, David Berkowitz, and that it was a hapless confluence of events, a comedy of errors that got them stuck in this. And unfortunately, this poor woman, Wheat Carr, who, this is a relatively unknown picture of her, where she also looks very nice, I have to say. Wheat Carr gets a bad reputation, man-like, and all this kind of stuff. But so far, she seems fairly feminine, and here, very feminine, in fact. And in part of this transcript, there's some stuff that we're going to comment on as well. But of course, Wheat Carr, the truth is the truth as we know it, right? Which is objective fact, which is not subjective, right? Not innuendo. The objective fact is that Wheat Carr, of course, seen here with Yonkers Mayor Angelo Martinelli and Police Chief Polson and Chamberlain and Intervallo, and who knows who these people are back here. Maybe one of my ex-YPD friends knows. The truth is, Wheat Carr could not have been more helpful to the investigation. She could not have been more open in giving information to the Yonkers Police Department. She was absolutely integral in the arrest and capture of David Berkowitz. And quite frankly, from all the facts that we know, the objective facts, not conspiracy theory, not some innuendo of her driving a car one night in Brooklyn because this person once said it and that person once said that, and then a game of telephone happened, and now all of a sudden Wheat Carr is a murderer. The objective fact is she couldn't have been more helpful to the police. And of course, here she is. And this picture was given to me by Mike Lorenzo, whose father is right here. This is Mike Lorenzo Sr., the father of the great Mike Lorenzo, who does our walk and talks and who has been so integral in helping us make sense of these crimes. And by the way, he's all over these tapes. He's like more obsessed than any of y'all out there. I cannot believe the dedication. Every day I'm getting like 20 texts from the guy, and I love it. But here, of course, is the Yonkers police contingent getting their awards at an NYPD ceremony. And it's quite an interesting photograph, actually, if you look at it, because all of the men in here are very dour, right? Look at their faces. They are not smiling. This is not the look right here of a happy gentleman. This guy's looking like, okay, I'll play along with this, but I'm not really down with this. This cat right here is looking like, all right, let's get this over with. I got somewhere to be. This dude is here being polite. Chamberlain and Intervallo back there are having a good time. And of course, Wheat is having a good time as well. They're all receiving awards. Lorenzo told me that the reason why most of these cats were not happy was because, well, they didn't feel all that great about what went down in Yonkers. They were struggling with the fact that this guy Berkowitz was committing crimes for over a year in their neighborhood, and really he was allowed to do it. And that's a whole other subject of Son of Sam research that we have to discuss. But we're here to talk today, of course, about these Wheat Carr recordings. But before we get into the recording, and don't be too sure about this, Lydia, because I've reached out to Violante several times. Zero response whatsoever. Before we get into the Wheat Carr recordings, I want to talk about the importance of these newly unearthed Queens DA recordings. Because, well, they are welcome to the golden age of Son of Sam research, guys. It's the golden age. All right. And it really is. This last year and 2 or 3 months that I put in have felt like a slog, in a sense, almost like fighting a war. And we really learned a hell of a lot. And now it's just so awesome to have done this work because, well, let's talk about why these are so important. Let's get into the reasons why. The major importance of these recordings, because it's the golden age. Okay. Welcome to the golden age of Son of Sam research, guys. This is going to be the thing that unites a lot of people in Son of Sam. Guaranteed. And the reason why is because of what I'm about to hit you with now, and then we're going to get into the recording. So now we have words from the people's mouths, right? As great as the video series was last year, and as awesome as it was to talk to firsthand people with direct knowledge of things, we still, in some cases, were second, third degree removed. Okay. We certainly never spoke to Wheat Carr, at least not publicly and on video. Okay. Now we have the words from these people's mouths, unadulterated, unfiltered, unedited, and really uninterpreted through other people. We're not reading the interpretation that Maury Terry gave us in The Ultimate Evil. And as we can see with the North Dakota documents that we've just kind of gone through, the Tom and Darlene ones, there is no way that any serious person on hell or on earth can interpret what Maury interpreted from those documents. It's just not a reasonable thing to say. on everything, Reeve Rockman to the Son of Sam symbol to everything that Maury posited about North Dakota is not backed up in those transcripts. Yet he used those transcripts to give us a false sense of reality. Now we have the words from the people's mouths. This is incredibly important for us as researchers. We have now interviews that we as researchers can compare and contrast. So what do I mean by that? Well, today we're going to hear a recording of Wheat Carr. Wheat Carr makes accusations against other people in this tape that we're going to hear. Okay? Those other people are also interviewed in the recordings by the Queen's DA, and they have things to say about what Wheat Carr said about them. So it's extremely interesting that we can now compare and contrast people's various accounts of things. This is humongous. This takes us out of the realm of conjecture, out of the circle jerk. Okay? We now have actual words from actual people's mouth. And now, because of our video series, yes, I am taking credit for this, because this is just objective truth, just like everything else I'm saying is objective truth. Because of our video series, we now have the infrastructure for these recordings making sense. Imagine you had read The Ultimate Evil and there had been no video series. So there was no groundswell of popularity, of fun, of information that we all shared this last year and a half. Very special time in my life and maybe in yours as well. We went through a lot together. We learned a lot, maybe about each other. And we went through almost a very sloggy war. There was a lot of backstabbing, a lot of dirty dealing, a lot of negativity. Yet out of that, we learned so much about these crimes. And what did we learn? We learned that Maury Terry's ultimate evil is most likely 98% absolute fiction. And because we've had a year and a half almost to inculcate this into our psyches, and to understand that there are other stories out there, especially stories like the Netto family story, especially stories about these newly unearthed writings found in Berkowitz's apartment, which sheds new light on other aspects of the case. We now are psychologically primed to be able to accept another story, another perspective. And I have to tell you that any objective listening of these tapes so far, and now I haven't listened to every one of them, but any objective listening of these tapes so far, and I have spoken already to 4 law enforcement professionals about the same tapes, and we're all in agreement. There is absolutely no evidence backing up Maury's thesis whatsoever in any of these tapes. Now, I haven't listened to them all. That might change in one of them. We have Tommy Zano saying that he saw Berkowitz shoot Stacy Moskowitz in these tapes. As I said on Twitter today, what the fuck? Where was this my entire life? So because our video series exists, now we have the infrastructure for this to make sense. So therefore, we are the best place to make sense of these recordings. And we're going to do it together, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it too. Simply, we have a lot more basic context to work with than before. Okay? We now know about the Nettos. We now know about Mike Lorenzo's dad. We now know about the shooting of Harvey Carr, and about how Maury made it seem like a tall blonde hair guy did it, making us think totally different, when now we have all those police reports. We've done walk and talks on it. Now we even have Queen's DA reports on it. This is perhaps one of the most important aspects of these recordings. Hearing people in their own voice breaks the veil on these characters. Before I heard Wheat Carr, I didn't know what to think. Now she's human to me. Now she's a person. Now she's a human being. Before I heard Tom Turkey Taylor, he was just an abstract. Now I hear that he was a stoned out, burned out hippie. Barry Dosenko, the accused shooter of Stacy Moskowitz, who is on these recordings as well. He sounds like the most burned out, drugged out hippie possible you can ever imagine in your life. Totally incapable of anyone trusting this guy to come and commit premeditated first-degree murder in a shooting spree that had international implications and publicity. The veil is broken. Maury Terry is interviewed in this, and he blames Joaquin Goncarlo for owning the yellow Volkswagen. He says to the Queen's DA, he goes, check out Joaquin Goncarlo. He owns a yellow Volkswagen. And the implication from Maury is that this guy is guilty as sin. We know we are 1 degree separated from Joaquin Goncarlo through the Neto family. They said he was the most God-fearing Christian, wonderful person you could ever imagine. Didn't even know English. The veil is broken. The house of cards is tumbling quicker than World Trade Center 7. And perhaps one of the most important things to understand about these, oh God, I didn't even have these up. Duh. I always do that. Someone needs to tell me that I didn't have all these up. Anyway, you could read them now, and I said them. But this is so important. The Queen's DA investigation is the Son of Sam investigation. Forget about Maury Terry's book. He based his entire book on the results of the DA investigation, essentially, of the Queen's DA. It was the only law enforcement organization that took him seriously. And listening to these tapes, I'm not exactly sure they did take him seriously. But nevertheless, the Queen's DA investigation is the only law enforcement investigation ever done deeply into Son of Sam besides the official investigation by NYPD. But this is the investigation into the conspiracy angle. So this, for us as researchers, is a literal gold mine, because now we have context that we never could have dreamed we had before. The Queen's DA investigation is the Son of Sam investigation, is the conspiracy investigation. And if nothing comes out of these DA reports that supports Maury Terry's thesis, well, that means what I've been saying for the last year and a half. Forget the process. Forget the 22 Disciples of Hell. The story started in 1974 on Wicker Street with the Neto family. If the Queen's DA investigation does not bear out cultic activity or the involvement of John Carr or Wheat Carr, then my video series has been completely and 100% vindicated, and there should be nowhere else that you go to get your information on Son of Sam, because no one else is worthy of your time. Having said that, let's get into the recording. Give me a second. Let me get it up here. That didn't sound right. And let me look at the chat real quick. Yeah, Barry was another trip to listen to. Yes. And so now, so listen, guys, if you want to call in pretty much at any time, call in. Okay. So what we're going to do now, my friends, is we are going to listen to the full unedited, I haven't even listened to most of this. I listened to the first 10 minutes and then I was like, shit, I got to keep my reactions natural on camera. So we're going to listen to this together and all learn in real time. I should bring back the real-time true crime moniker. We're all going to learn in real time new things that we never learned before and knew before about Son of Sam. And this could only benefit us, the Maury fans and the Manny fans. And tell me if it's too loud.
It is October 26, 1979, 5 p.m. We're in the apartment of Wheat McCabe, formerly Wheat Carr, at 26 Marble Terrace in Hastings-on-Hudson. Present are Wheat Carr McCabe, Detective George Berg, and myself, Herbert Leifer, Assistant District Attorney. Okay?
Okay. At the time that John committed suicide, he had come home in January. This is 1978. When he arrived home, he told my mother and I, and this is within an hour after he got there, we were sitting down, that he came home because he was scared.
He came home because he was scared. Okay. So if he's so scared of being in New York, why is he coming back to New York because he's scared?
He said that he had been approached again about selling drugs on campus, and he just didn't want any part of it.
Oh, what was that Eric Galati said the other day about Maury stumbling into John's drug pipeline? Hey, that seems to be bearing fruit here. He was approached in North Dakota to sell drugs on campus.
And he believed that these people were very serious. He didn't know exactly who they were, but he was very concerned about it. He stayed home, and that time when he was home, that 3 weeks, I don't think he went out of the house unless he went out with either myself, my brother, my parents, at all. I really don't believe he went out at all alone. He was afraid to drive. He was afraid whoever it was had followed him here. He was really paranoid, really.
Oh, hey, remember how I said now we have interviews we can compare and contrast? So Wheat just said he was extremely paranoid. That comports exactly with the North Dakota transcripts of Tom and Darlene, lending Wheat a lot of credibility and credence, in my opinion.
Spaced out, freaky. I said, John, you messed up on drugs. We got to get you calmed down. You got to stay clean for a while, and then we can talk about this again. So he stayed in the house. At that time, I had a little building project going on. I said, the best thing for you is some hard physical labor. And that's what he did for 2 weeks. If he went out, I would come home from work.
That also comports with the North Dakota transcript of Tom and Darlene when he said that John went back to build upstairs. Remember, he said the father wanted him to build something upstairs. So far, Wheat's on the money.
Pick him up. He came over and he visited my husband and I. He went out with us. He went out a couple of day visits to friends of the family with one or both of my parents. But other than that, he didn't want to see anybody. He didn't call any of his own friends. Nothing. He just didn't want. He wanted to get his head on straight. Then he talked to Linda O'Connor.
Notice how Wheat said straight properly. Everybody says it now straight with an S and an H. People didn't talk like that in the 70s. That's the hip hopization of American culture. It's straight, everybody. There's no H in straight.
Connor, which is his girlfriend, who we have all tried very hard to keep out of this. She teaches school. And if she has no involvement, it wouldn't matter. If her name gets in the paper out there, then she's going to end up losing her job because of it. Just because she was associated with him who was associated with druggies, period. They don't care about the son of Sam. Just that's it. And he spoke to her on the phone for 2 or 3 hours. And then he called his ex-wife and spoke to her, mostly about his daughter. He talked to his daughter for a while. And he told me that what he wanted to do was he felt that if he stayed in North Dakota, he was going to continue with the same group of friends who were all up to their ears in drugs.
As Eric surmised, he was involved in major drug stuff in North Dakota. Nothing whatsoever to do with Son of Sam, Berkowitz. I mean, cult.
And that it's just because there were so few people, there was nobody else to associate with. That the straight crowd and drug crowd were so mixed. And I knew that because I'd been out there quite a few times. And, this person's totally straight and that person drinks and this person's on drugs, but you don't have anybody else your own age, so you're all at the same party. He went out there with the intention of either finishing out that semester, doing whatever had to be done so that he and Linda could pack up their belongings and leave. And this is what he planned to do. I was under the impression that he was planning to come back immediately. Just go, get Linda, pack everything, ship it, come back, and figure out what to do from there. But apparently I'm wrong. Apparently what it was they were going to finish out the semester, because when he got out there, I understand, he opened the post office box. This is all on the day that he supposedly shot himself. He opened a post office box, a bank account, and...
All right, so clearly Wheat thinks that it's murder here because she's saying, hey, he opened up all this stuff on the day of his supposed suicide.
There was one other thing. Oh, he went to the VA to get the school to straighten out about getting back in and getting his VA money recontinued. Now, that doesn't sound to me like somebody who 8 hours later is going to blow their head off. It really doesn't.
Of course, this murder thesis, which of course Detective Chinati said that he was murdered, it makes perfect sense if he was paranoid of some drug activity that was going on, and a murder makes perfect sense if in this scenario, having nothing to do with Son of Sam. And by the way, that whole thing where I gotta be big for this. That whole thing where they say that Son of Sam was etched in the blood on the baseboard, and that then there was an SOS scratched in blood on John Carr's hands. If you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. I'm sorry, that's complete horseshit. I've looked at those pictures a million times. I have never once seen anything resembling SOS written in blood on the baseboard. Sorry, just had to put that in there.
The other thing that I'm a little concerned about is the way Linda found him. And he supposedly sat down on a bed, put the gun in his mouth, and shot himself. But he was found face down on the floor, with the back of his head blown off, I guess, and high glen.
Can we go out?
Yes, 6 o'clock.
Not now?
No, be back by 6 o'clock.
I'll be back.
So this is actually quite interesting. So she's very nonchalantly talking about her brother's head blown off. That's that's kind of interesting. And then she immediately pivots to like, okay, you guys have to come back by 6. I guess those were employees of hers.
Okay?
You stay there.
Yeah, leave him in there. And with the gun balanced across his heels somehow, with not one end to the other touching the floor. Somehow I cannot believe that in freak accident somebody could. I just can't believe the possibility. Hey, Fluffy, I'm glad you kept the dog in the bedroom.
I got him. Come on.
Wow, a little flash of anger there.
Go with Glenn.
Come on,
Go with
Fluffy.
Glenn.
Be a good boy. Be a good boy and get in my bedroom.
Fluff?
How obscene.
What a meanful dog like that, Fluffy, right?
She's beating me again.
It just doesn't seem possible to me. If he'd been standing up, perhaps the force of thing turning around and laying down on his face, but the gun fall across his feet and be balanced, she said, on the heels of his boots, with his foot like exact right angles and it across here.
I just want to comment again, you guys are saying Fluffy, the dog, and this is exactly what I'm talking about humanizing and putting a voice and a personality to these people. I don't see this woman as a murderess after listening to this, but anyway.
And how could there be blood in another room? You can't tell me somebody just blew his head off is going to get up and walk around. Blood in another total room.
Can I ask you this? Who told you about this? Was it Linda?
Linda.
By the way, I love Wheat Carr's accent.
So, the combination of her, right at that time, describing what happened, and him saying somebody was trying to kill him when he came home, which we were writing off to a little drug paranoid, admittedly. But then, everyone out there in law enforcement seemed to be convinced at that point that it was suicide. And he had a lot of reasons for suicide. He came back he had been sent overseas.
All right, so she's saying he had a lot of reasons for suicide. Let's see if Son of Sam are any of those reasons.
At the time he was stationed in Florida. He left here, he had a wife, a 4-bedroom house, a gorgeous little girl that he adored and adored him, and 2 cars, and everything seemed to be beautiful in the world. He came back, he had been divorced, his wife was remarried, relocated to Texas with the little girl, the house and the cars had all been sold. He had nothing. He was 30 years old and he suddenly had nothing. And he was transferred to Minot, North Dakota when he hated to be cold.
Had he been in any kind of business before he went into the service?
No, he was he flunked out he graduated from high school in '64. He went to Canisius College till January, and because he partied more than he studied, he was flunking out. And
so even here is an insight into John Carr that we've never gotten. Jim Fay. Accent, what accent? Whoops, sorry. Totally. We're getting a glimpse into John Carr that we never got before, and he's being humanized by all this. This is extremely important stuff. I mean, I wish I told Eric this off the air. I said I wish I had found this just for the ego gratification of it all. Because listen, I'm a journalist, and someone else got this, not me. But it doesn't matter. The case has been advanced so much. Maybe not in the way that people thought it would. I think a lot of people thought this stuff was going to vindicate Maury's story, but the case has been advanced so much by these recordings. Again, it's the golden age.
Went right into the Air Force. He came home, he says, I just flunked out of college, I start in the Air Force Monday.
That would be 1965 or 6?
January 65, because he graduated in 64 and he only went the half year. And then he was married in 68, that's what it was. We got married in my senior year. That's how I remember. Either he got married or my cousin got married. One of them got married that June, but I think it was him, because he got married in June and Michael got married in October. From what his wife tells me, he was sent TDY, which is temporary duty elsewhere, to Germany and to Korea and to Thailand, were his 3 overseas assignments. And he...
Uh-oh, she said Korea. Uh-oh. She said Korea. Oh, I knew it. He was the handler of Berkowitz. They were there in Korea together. I knew it. My father was there with them. He was their commanding officer.
I'd always done things, smoked a little dope, smoked a little pot, but nothing really heavy until after the divorce. I don't think he was home the whole 2 years of the whole Son of Sam thing. I don't think that he was home. Well, he was home, but he wasn't. He was home for Michael's wedding, which was October 75. He was home for a month before that, but he didn't stay for the wedding.
Now, that is absolutely true. Okay? It's amazing how much everything she's saying is checking out. And of course, I know this to be true because in our video series last year, we did a video called Deep Inside the Carr Family, where I made the mistake of calling them intelligence assets. I was still on my Maury Terry trip. But one thing we found back then was the wedding pictures of Michael Carr, and John Carr is nowhere to be found in those photographs. Wheat's there. She's dancing. Sam and Francis are there. They're having a great time. Michael Vale Baron Charnowski's there. He's having a great grand old time. No John Carr, just like she's saying right here. She's involved. She's involved.
He was stationed in Minot at that time?
I'm not even sure where he was stationed then. He must have been in Minot then because he was already divorced. From the guys that were with him in Thailand and with him in Korea, I knew that he had been doing some drugs. But avoiding anything more than really just popping a pill, a little speed, or something to bring him back down, and smoking.
Do you have any recollection of when he was in Korea?
So I just want to comment on what Book Club 22 just said. So naysayers will say that the inaudible parts of Wheat's #2 interviews where she talks about Son of Sam. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, they say that my father is Berkowitz's military handler. Who cares what the naysayers say it anymore? The story has been crumbled into dust. Those people are absolutely irrelevant. Their opinion means nothing to us anymore, Book Club.
I can't get it straight in my head which came first, Korea or Thailand. But he was in both places, and I think it was Thailand that he was for a year, and I think that's where he was when he was divorced. So that would be, I think, 74. I'm not exactly sure of the date. We have all his service records that he had at home. He brought a whole lot of, he used to send them to us. So we have, I could check on that further, but not off the top of my head. The last time he was home he came home.
So I want to just say one thing. Someone wrote something. So Red Salute wrote, it looks like the Carr Family Defense Force is here. No, we're just defending truth. If there was evidence that says that Carr was involved, right now I'd be playing that just like I'm playing this. Okay?
Home I think he came home like 2 or 3 days after I got married, after I got back, because I eloped in January. And he arrived just a couple
January
of
what
days
year?
later, 78. Now, Terry Gardner told me something about people telling him about this visitor from New York he had in January.
Okay, now this is very important. She's now talking about so-called Reeve, quote unquote, so-called Rockman, quote unquote. Okay, and she is going to. Well, let's just hear what she says.
76. Okay, this is what Terry Gardner told me. And that just before that, there was a month or two that John was unaccounted for. Well, he has been. Now, as far as I know, no police have ever contacted my former sister-in-law. The press has, and she's told them, oh, I haven't seen him since we got divorced. And that was to protect her daughter. You know, you see, they do things like they found Jennifer and they asked her if the dog talked to her. And you know, Jennifer, she said, sure, but then all animals talk to children, right? So Dottie has denied John being there, but 4 days ago on the telephone, she told me John had been there. And I know John had been there because we have the collect phone calls from Texas to prove it.
So she's saying things that are actually actionable in court. She's saying that she has records to prove it. She says that she got the collect telephone call. If push had come to shove and the police had wanted those records, she would have had to given them up and they would have found out right then and there if she was lying. Because that never happened, I got to assume she's telling the truth. And maybe they have the records, right? And we never heard about it because they checked out 100%.
Drug-wise, I would say the worst time for John. John was home in June of 77. And he was home at the time that we found out who David Berkowitz was.
Interesting. June of 77, John was home exactly when they found out who Berkowitz was. That means he wasn't home before that, which means he wasn't home while Berkowitz was doing all his Netto stuff, shooting of the dog, which means he wasn't involved with Berkowitz.
In other words, that's the point. Mrs. Cassara came to us about the postcard, the get well card her husband received, and put together the thing about the tenant and all of that. And then my father saw the sketch, and that was when he first went to the police, and they said he was nuts. And the handwriting was so different from the infamous letter, you know, the John Wheaties letter. Which incidentally, my brother was incapable of writing. His handwriting makes Berkowitz look like Catholic school script.
So right there, she denies that John Carr had anything to do with the Son of Sam letter. Okay. Now, she could be lying through her teeth. That's always a possibility, but I don't know. Doesn't sound like she's lying to me. It sounds like she's pulling these facts out of her head very quickly, speaking very confidently. Doesn't seem coached or forced. Doesn't sound rehearsed.
Let me ask you, just going back a little bit, you had
Sure.
mentioned about a visitor he had in
Yeah, that
North
was me.
Dakota.
That
That was
was
you?
me.
Okay.
I was out there. He had either OD'd or something. And we got a call from, I think his name is Norm Smith. He's in Minot Police Department. And he called my parents, and I got emergency leave and went out there. And it's at that point that he was put into this treatment thing.
So of course, you know, the Maury fans all said, Wheat was seen in North Dakota. Oh my God. Wheat was there. Wheat was in North Dakota. She's guilty. No, I mean, she was visiting her brother one time after an OD. I mean, she was a very caring sister. I had a sister that lived in Maine for 10 years. I visited her several times. Have you ever had a sibling that lived in another state? Did you ever visit them?
With this Lee Slater character, who I now understand has been found to be unqualified to be a counselor and has disappeared somewhere into Minnesota.
All right, so she just made an accusation here against Lee Slater, the psychiatrist. This is something that we as a crowd can research. Was Lee Slater or Slater? Was she disbarred? Was she taken her job away or anything. This is something that we can verify.
But who also says John knew David Berkowitz. The thing that puzzles me is why 2 years ago, when all this was investigated and they were looking so hard to find a way that Berkowitz could have found out everything he did about us, so apparently John's service, I guess where he was stationed and things, was checked into to some degree. I don't know to what degree. Joey Serlak from the Yonkers Police did it, and I got the feeling from him when I asked him about it was that he really just checked dates, and he felt it was kind of, unlikely. They were never in the same place at the same time. So as far as their service records were concerned, and I guess Berkowitz was in the Army?
Army, right.
Yeah. So that made it even less likely that they even met on the same basis. But, I was out there, and I was out there for, I guess, 10 days, trying to get him, straightened out, calmed down. Why don't you get out of here, get out of the drugs, get away from here, there's nothing but hurt here for you, that kind of thing. But he was involved with a girl, and he didn't want to leave the girl.
How many times in all have you been out there?
So here she is. She's caring about her brother. She's showing real human emotion of compassion, love, sympathy. Doesn't sound like someone who would be an intelligence handler of Berkowitz, a murderess, and then going to the cops and then leading them to the actual murderer, which could then come back on her and her family. I mean, it doesn't. Again, humanizing these people, right? This is incredibly important for us psychologically as Son of Sam researchers.
What the cover? If you can, if you remember approximately.
I was out there the summer that he first came home because I was out there for a couple of weeks while his daughter was there. His daughter was visiting him during the summer for, I guess, almost 2 months, and I was out there all but 1 week of that, and my mother was there the other week.
Did you ever meet Linda?
Linda I'd never met except on the telephone. We had not met her yet. I'd met his other girlfriends, but Linda's was a fairly recent thing in his life. But then, see, John and Michael both were very, very charming young men, and just girls were always, calling them, and just unbelievable, they'd just throw them, go out. We used to go out together, and to dance or just to party or whatever, and we'd be sitting in a bar and some girl would come over and try to pick him up, and he's with somebody. I mean, it may be his sister, but they don't know that.
To this time, have you ever met Linda?
No, we have only talked to her on the phone, and apparently it's Michael. Michael is the one that talked to her a lot. I talked to her several times when
Michael is now emerging as a very sympathetic character. So Michael talked to John Carr's wife a lot. Okay. I'm sure he wasn't trying to recruit her to a satanic cult in all that time. And we also have in the transcripts that Michael of Tom and Darlene, that Michael was the one that came up, made them drink, spoke to them, went upstairs, talked to Tom for a while alone. Michael's emerging as and that, of course, comports exactly with what I heard from his guy who he was running with for student association, a guy named Kerry Zibix, I think his name was. I cold called him one day. He was shocked to hear from me, but he remembered Michael Carr very well. He said he was a partier. He was like one of the nicest guys he ever met. He was like a hustler. He was always into business. Never heard any talk about anything of Satanism.
he was first dead. And I've been up to here in a custody suit for my 2 stepchildren with my husband. Needless to say, this hasn't helped the custody suit, because every time we go to court, his wife says, look what he's married to. You want kids slept with a person like that? But that's my personal problem. Their mother is interesting. That's 3 or 4 days. But
Let's check the time on that.
it's still going round.
Still going around.
Yeah, it's about a third of the way through.
We're at 195.
Plenty. So, as John's involvement in the occult, I'm not going to deny, there's no way I can deny, and I'd be stupid to deny, John was very heavy into drugs.
Okay, all right. This is major right here. John's involvement into the occult. So now I'm wrong. Wheat Carr did say that. Okay, I put a tweet that I was calling bullshit on that. She just said that right here. John's involvement in the occult, I'm not going to deny. I'd be stupid to deny. He was involved in a lot of drugs. So she wasn't equating the occult to Satanism. She was equating it to the drug subculture, and that to me it seems like that right here. But even if he was into the occult, okay, folks out there in logical reality land, even if John Carr was into the occult, what does that prove? It was 1976 and 77. It was the trend of the day to be into the occult. Everybody was into the occult back then. And she doesn't say anything about Satanism. She talks about drugs. I'm listening to this. This is the first time I've ever heard this.
But this last time, I really truly believed, right? I went to college in the 70s. I was around a lot of people that were involved in drugs. I had a good friend, OD. I'm very personally anti-drugs. I hate to take aspirin. But you know when somebody's saying, I want to get out, and they don't mean it. And when somebody really means it and is serious about it, you know maybe they're not capable, maybe they are deeply addicted, whether it be psychologically or emotionally or physically. But still, there's a fine line between saying, oh, I wish I could stop this, I hate what I'm doing to myself, and saying, I have to stop it, I want to stop it. You know, I wish and I want are two different things. Very fine line. He had gone from I wish to I want. I believed that this last time. It's the first time I'd ever believed it.
Selective editing, Mo. So she says, my brother's involvement in the occult, I'm not going to deny. I'd be stupid to deny it. And then goes on a 2-minute diatribe about his use of drugs, never then referring once back to the occult at all. Now, she might. I haven't listened to this. This is new to me, just like it's new to most of you. But Maury took out that one little quote and used that to prove his thesis. Are you seeing why I'm calling him selective editing Mo? She did not say anything about Son of Sam or or Satanism or Untermeyer Park or occult activities with Satanism. She was talking about drugs.
When he was in Texas at Christmas, it was the first time his ex-wife believed it. Apparently, his even smoking dope is one of the problems they had in their marriage, because she's violently anti-drug of any kind, for much the same reason I am. She's seen too many people she cared about messed up on him. And she said that, she told me that that was the first time she believed it. That he had gotten there straight and stayed straight the entire time. Hadn't gone out, nothing. Just been there, spent the time either with her and her husband or with his daughter, and stayed totally straight. So that means there's about 2 months in there before his death that he probably was staying reasonably straight. Wasn't taking anything new. Yes, I know LSD trips can recur for a certain length of time afterwards. Nobody knows what that length of time is. So maybe it is possible. Okay?
Had your brother ever lived out in the West?
Except as he was stationed in Denver for a while, for schools. I think he was out there on 2 different occasions. Once was when he first went in, his original training. After basic, his advanced training was there. He'd been to San Francisco for some schools, I think.
He was in Denver. That means he was involved with the underground tunnels in the airport. I knew it. John Carr's guilty, and he was in San Francisco, which means he's involved with McMartin and preschool and the Presidio and Michael Aquino. I knew it. He was involved.
I'm not sure about that. There's one training thing he went for 3 months that I can't remember. It was before he went overseas the last time, but I can't remember if he went to Denver or San Francisco or both. Mm-hmm. But it's in San Francisco's in my head, and it may just be because he was going either or.
He never lived out there with his wife, though.
No, they were stationed in Dover, Delaware, and then they were stationed in Tyndall in Florida, Panama City, Florida. And then while he was overseas the last time, he was transferred to North Dakota.
When he lived with his wife in Panama City.
That's right.
Did he own a house or live
Yes,
in a...
he had bought a 4-room house, and as a matter of fact, Her parents got divorced about the same time they went to Florida, and she took her father and her 2 brothers and her sister with them, which is why he bought such a big house for just the 3 of them.
Oh, that was the house you were talking
Yeah,
about
that
before,
was the
with 2
house.
cars in the house and...
Right, everything's sold and gone on him.
But that was in Panama City.
Mm-hmm. In North Dakota, he lived, well, for a while he was on base. He had 1 apartment. Just before he came home this last time, he had been staying with another guy. Again, Linda tells me that when he moved out of that apartment and in with her, she was there, and they absolutely, this guy also moved out at the same time, or something, or was gone or something. She says there wasn't anything in the place. You know, I'm being told they found letters John wrote to Berkowitz, or Berkowitz wrote to John. And I really will have to see them before I ever believe them. Of course, I can't even get back the letters Berkowitz wrote to us. Apparently, some DA in New York has a hold on him. I guess now it's Santucci's. I don't know.
Well, guess what? We got him. We got him, Wheat.
But I really would have to see those letters right in my hand, with my brother's handwriting, to believe it. And, you know, I mean, I know I would know my brother's handwriting. And I'll tell you the truth, I don't even care if my brother comes up totally dirty. I just want it resolved. It's no good for me to have this come up every 4 months or 3 months.
So right there is incredibly important. I don't care if my brother's dirty. I just want this resolved. Does this sound like a guilty party to you? She's saying if he's dirty, he's dirty. Let's get this resolved, though. It's bothering me. This is something in my life that's out of control. And you know what? To this day, it's still out of control. Because to this day, she still has morons out there calling her the murderer, the murderess.
Maury Terry, I love his timing. The last time we went, we were supposed to get a final disposition on the custody. This story broke that morning. We went the 13th, whatever Monday was after the 12th, I guess the 15th. The story broke on Friday the 12th. Timing's unbelievable. So, I just find it impossible to believe. See, John has been quoted as saying that he hated his father. Sure, help yourself. Okay? There's a lot of bad feeling between both Michael and John and my father. But there's 3 people in the world, maybe 4 if you count Linda.
She's clearly smoking a cigarette here. That's probably what the thing was going. So this is. I have a feeling this is going to be good. She's talking about the relation between John and Michael and Sam.
John and Michael both loved above all else. And that's Jennifer, John's daughter, my mother, and me. The 3 of us, guys used to get very upset with how close I was with my brothers, because they would be jealous, because the guy would say, you want to go do this? And I'd say, no, my brother and I are going out dancing. You know, we were always very, very tight. And I can't believe that my brother could do something that would hurt me. Now, I don't know if it's in your record or anything else, but I have since found out that Berkowitz was following me. People who saw his picture said, you know, that guy was in here like 3 weeks ago, a month ago, when you were here asking questions about you.
Here we go. This actually is most likely 100% true. Why? Because we have the police report from August 6th saying that Berkowitz was looking for Mickey Carr, and she was known as Mickey around town, okay? And he had a wig on and he was carrying a gun. So here she is talking about the same exact thing. I mean, it's unbelievable how this is all working out, how this is all meshing together. Everything up in Yonkers is coming together perfectly.
From his apartment on Pine Street, there is a complete direct view of our entire backyard. So, you know, we'll have...
And really quickly, let me get back to this Tommy Zano thing. So the killer at Moskowitz supposedly wore a wig. Okay? We have Berkowitz being reported wearing a wig on August 6th. right? 6 days after the Moskowitz shooting. Now he has a wig on in Yonkers. And we have Zano in these tapes, which I'm going to play for you, I think, next. Not today, but our next thing will be Tommy Zano's recording, where he says emphatically twice that it was Berkowitz who did the shooting.
How did he know you had a basement? It's easy. You see people going in and out, a little door that goes down the side, in which we had work going on at the time. It was easy. You know, the attic, you can see into the attic from the aqueduct, never mind from up in his apartment where you can look down nice and easy. My schedule is easy enough.
And we know that that's true because my video series has shown you the aqueduct and the attic windows. Again, the infrastructure my video series has given you guys has enabled you now to envision what she's saying in your head with utmost accuracy.
Enough to figure out. I worked around the clock, right? So if I came home at 11 o'clock this night, then obviously I'm working 3 to 11. And
Had you ever seen Berkowitz?
I had only seen him once, and that was about 2 weeks before he was arrested. And that was, he was in the car and pulled up next to me at a traffic light. And it didn't even occur to me until he pulled away who he was, because the other person in the car was somebody I knew and was trying to track down because he had recently stolen $1,000.
Okay, now, this is important. Now she's about to talk about Fred Deagle, okay? Now, Fred Deagle, his interview is almost an hour long, maybe a little more than an hour, where he emphatically denies in the most strictest language possible these allegations made by Wheat Carr. So this is another thing that's amazing about these tapes, is that we get a he said, she said type thing. Somebody's telling the truth and someone's lying. I'm not going to say who it was and who, because I don't know. But let's listen. Let's take a listen to this.
Out of our house. He was supposed to be working. His name is Freddie Daigle. And I looked at the car, and then when he pulled away, I looked at the car to get the plate because Freddie had disappeared. We hadn't been able to find him. And I looked at the plate. I figured, I'll go to work tonight. I'll run the plate up, find out, somewhere to look for him. And then I looked at the plate and I said, that's that clown we're looking for because of shooting the dog and firebombing the house.
You had checked the plate out previously, or how'd you know the
Well,
plate?
when we first found out, this was in July that I saw them. In June, when we found out Berkowitz, I admit I did a very bad thing. I went into the teletype room and ran his name through and got his driver's license and his address and his car and the fact that he had a suspended license, which is what a couple of cops who were friends of mine and Mike Lorenzo, we were trying to get him they were trying to get him driving his car. Just to have a reason to lock him up.
There, right there is one of the incredible values, again, of our video series. She just mentioned Mike Lorenzo. You now know who Mike Lorenzo is, not only the father, right, because of the Lorenzo files and the work that we've done on that, but also the son, who was a detective in Yonkers PD and who was a friend of our video series, and his analysis is amazing. So she's now talking about people that we know.
Up to ask him questions was what they planned. There were 3 people that were agreeing with my father and I that he was a lot more than just the person who was harassing Sam.
Besides this one fellow who you saw in the car with him, do you know any other people who were friends of Berkowitz's? Do you know where he is now?
Who? No.
Daigle, is it?
No. I know he's in New Rochelle someplace. He's seen occasionally.
You know how you spell his last name?
It's D-E-G-I-L or E-L. I'm not sure. He has no cars registered in his name. They're registered in his... She's either his wife or his girlfriend at this point. I don't know.
What's her name?
I don't even know. I had very little to do with him.
Now, Deagle, in his tape, says that Wheat was all over him and that she was propositioning him and she wouldn't leave him alone. So it's interesting that she's talking about his girlfriend here, and I'm picking up a little jealousy there. I mean, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I'm actually picking up a little jealousy and anger towards Fred Deagle's girlfriend, which could be confirming Deagle's side of the story. Anyway.
See, a lot of weird things happened at that time, and a lot of people thought I was getting really wacky. But I was driving from Mamaroneck towards New Rochelle. And do you know, you don't know New Rochelle, you're from
Don't know the area at all.
God's country, okay. A friend of mine, guy I was dating, well, I wasn't dating, he's really just a good friend. And we kind of had this little construction thing going together, and he had a shop.
She's talking about Jim Faulkner here, by the way. Jim Faulkner, the famous person who everyone thinks was covering up the bodies in the backyard and who got their house for a song because they were covering up bodies.
In that shop, we kept 2 guard dogs, one an English sheepdog and one...
By the way, trigger warning. I haven't heard this part yet, but for those who are not into animal talk about animal degradation or abuse or anything like that, you may want to tune out.
It's a Mastiff. I'm trying to remember what kind. But anyway, this Mastiff was 250 pounds and didn't like anybody in the world. Nobody. He tolerated 6 people. He was poisoned in, I think it was March. In June, I found, excuse me. Hi, sweetie. What's the matter?
Clay kicked me right in the ankle.
Let me see.
Right over here.
You've been kicked worse than that playing soccer. Go in the bathroom and wash your face.
Wow, huge insight into Wheat's personality there. Whoa, a little kid comes crying to her and she's like, yeah, you've been hit worse. Now go into the bathroom and wash your face. It's like no sympathy whatsoever. That's the kind of stuff I love about these tapes anyway, the human aspect.
Go in the bathroom and wash your face. Are they in the house?
No.
All right, we turned the machine off for just a few minutes while Wheat made a phone call.
Okay. What was I saying before she walked in?
Talk about the dog that got poisoned.
Oh. So, the only person with any access to that room was this Freddie, which kind of upset us and convinced us. He was supposed to be taking care of the dogs because both of us were in bed with the flu. And so I went over there one day to see how he was, to make sure the dogs were okay, because I didn't completely trust Freddie. My friend trusted him, I didn't. So I don't trust anybody. I proved to be right later when he disappeared with $1,000. And I found the dog totally dehydrated and almost dead. So we got him in the car, we took him down to the medical center. They tried, it didn't work. Then later I went over there, again for some reason I hadn't been there. Freddie was supposed to be walking the dog and feeding the dog for us. And I walked in and smelled dead body. And I found the dog, and the dog had been dead. The dog, I was there on Sunday, I found the dog on Thursday. The dog had to have been dead at least since Monday. In addition to the joints having been deteriorated, and so he was very flaccid, his eyes were gouged out of his head, literally gouged out of his head, and I found them in one room. And all of his teeth had been smashed out of his mouth. And he had all kinds of broken bones throughout his body. And I found a shovel with blood all over it. And I found the dog hidden in the bathroom like he was trying to hide behind the toilet, like he was running from somebody. This is where he always ran when we yelled at him for making a mess on the floor or whatever. So he had gone in there trying to get away from something. But he was beaten. His skull was crushed.
This was the sheepdog.
Yeah. We've never made any report of it because somebody could have thrown a piece of poisoned meat through the slot with the other dog, you know. But this didn't make sense. And so that night, Jim had been in a motorcycle accident.
All right, hold on. I gotta get my bearings here. So she's talking about some warehouse in New Rochelle that had some dog in it that was a couple of dogs. Two were found abused, and one was found dead. Um, and she's accusing this Fred Deagle of it. Deagle, Dingleberry, whatever his name is. She's accusing this guy of doing it. It's all interesting stuff. I admit. What's it have to do with David Berkowitz? Oh, right, because Deagle was supposedly in the car with David Berkowitz. I get that. All right. He emphatically denies it. And besides, who the hell is Fred Deagle? We've never heard his name before ever. Even Maury Terry never mention this guy ever in The Ultimate Evil or any of this. So what's this got to do with Son of Sam?
So I went to where he was, and I told him. He came back and looked at the dog, and then we disposed of the carcass. And we went and confronted Freddie with it, and he swore to us that he had seen the dog alive at 6 o'clock that morning, that he had left the bar where he was tending bar and gone with 3 other people to walk the dog and feed him. And I'm telling him, I'm saying, you're lying, because this dog has been dead. Now, if you tell me you haven't been there since Sunday, I might buy it. You just let him starve. But don't tell me you saw him 12 hours ago, because you're lying. And, oh, no, you asked so-and-so. So I did. I said, what'd you do last night when the bar closed? He says, oh, we went out to breakfast about 6 o'clock, and then Freddie said he was going to walk the dog, and we went home. I said, Freddie says you went with him to walk the dog. He says, no. I said, okay, fine. I went and found the other person who was supposed to be with him. Said, what'd you do last night? Same story. They went out, they had breakfast, they closed the bar at 4, they had breakfast, 6 o'clock, they went home, Freddie went to walk the dog.
Wheat seems to be doing something here that she did in the transcript of the when Detective Justice called her. She's talking too much. To me, none of this sounds believable. Actually, I think I'm on Deagle's side here. I think that Wheat is making this up as she's going along. But maybe you guys disagree.
So I go back and I say, Freddie, they didn't walk the dog with you. I believe them. I don't believe you. He says, you'll never know. What am I going to do? I can't prove he took $1,000. I can't prove he killed the dog. All I can do is someday say I'm going to strangle you.
Where did he work in a bar here in Hastings, or was it?
No, this was in Mamaroneck. It's a bar that's now changed owners 3 times since then. The other thing is he was working in the house at the time Harvey was shot.
Uh-oh.
That's your father's dog.
Right. My dog. My father's dog. Lives with my father. He's mine. But he was actually supposedly in the backyard. Now, the piece of metal in Harvey on the x-ray looks to be about that big, and it's about that thick. So it has to be a very large caliber.
It's still in Harvey.
Yes.
And
no,
Harvey's
you can't have it.
getting along well now.
Harvey's such a, he's such a nice dog. He really does look a little strange because he's all black. Well, black Labradors are black. But all he wants in the world is to play with people and love. He loves people. Loves everybody in the world.
Most dogs do.
And collects rocks. Just carries big boulders around. Plays with bricks. Carries them around in his mouth. His throw stick is a piece of 6x6. This long, weighs 20 pounds. I throw it 10 feet. He fetches it, carries it around for a day. He's fine. He's a beautiful dog. And he just loves everybody. But he did used to bark a lot. He hasn't that much since then. He doesn't bark like that anymore. He's very excitable, very high.
Actually, Book Club Warrior brings up something very important here. Fred's tape, yes, he does debunk the candlelight myth, which we debunked, of course, last year and got a lot of crap from the Son of Sam community for debunking that. Now it's official. He says that she did shoot a clock out in some bar, but it wasn't the Candlelight Inn. He names another bar.
Strong like many purebreds. But, not at all vicious or anything.
Actually, you know what, Dave? You are absolutely correct. The Fred tape is going to be next. It only makes sense.
List him as a guard dog because that way we can deduct what it costs for him. But other than that, and I don't know, maybe he wouldn't like anybody coming in the house. But it's never been a possibility. So, how John could be involved in all this stuff that was direct. I started to say this bar and new show. I was run off the road. There were 3 people in cars behind me. Unknown to me after that, my friends started making sure that I never went home late at night. Either somebody was in the car with me or somebody was in the car right behind me. We were getting a lot of hassle from the Yonkers police, so the night I parked the car, get out of the car, and someone shot at me in my driveway. I walked in the house covered with dirt, and it was not a firecracker. This bit about the German Shepherds being found dead up there, our night operator and I had been telling the guys that ride the sector for almost a year that we've been hearing, and I know the difference between, I shoot, okay? I own guns. I have a 22, I have a 25, I have 357 Magnum, do not own any 44s. Anyhow, but
Very interesting. And I think we're about to confirm something that the Nettos told us, but let's hear it.
I know the difference between a gunshot and a firecracker and a blockbuster and an M80. I know the difference in the noise. And this was a shot. And we had been hearing shots which sounded like 22s. And as a matter of fact, I heard them on the night, the Christmas Eve, I was going into work for midnight, that the Netto's dog was shot. That's the house on Wicker Street. The other thing that I don't know.
So she heard the Netto dog shooting. That's interesting. So of course the Netto story is something that I have to bring back to you guys. Anybody who's new, you don't realize the absolute revolution that we created in Son of Sam last year with the Netto revelations. I was wrong though about a key part of that. I had John Carr starting the Netto attacks. And so I am redoing the Netto stuff to reflect this new information that I don't think John Carr had anything to do with this at all. But it's interesting because Mrs. Netto, Maria Netto, told us that she heard dogs being killed on the Aqueduct Trail for quite a while, tortured, killed. She heard right behind her house on the aqueduct, and that's where I thought that Wheat was going with that, because she said we've been hearing dogs for a year, and then she switch subjects. Anyway.
If anybody ever cleared up the John Wheaties thing. Obviously, Wheat is my name, not John's name. I think I was about 12, which would have made John about 16. At the age when children get a lot of phone calls from their friends. In order to avoid having the calls go through the switchboard, we may have been even younger, I don't know. My mother listed a telephone, this telephone, residence phone, so
Uh-oh, she's talking about the John Wheat telephone entry.
that our friends could call us. And the telephone company charged you at that time an extra $1 to have 2 listings. So she listed it John Wheat Carr. This way everybody'd know it was John or Wheat, and they'd call us on this phone if they looked it up in the phone book. The first threatening phone call we got from Berkowitz came on that phone.
Holy cow. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my freaking God. What was my thesis before I even knew this tape existed? What was my thesis? Can someone report it back to me regarding how Berkowitz found that name? John Wheat. Somebody put it in the chat. What was my thesis? What was my thesis? How did Berkowitz find that name, John Wheat? Phone book. Yes. Now, who was saying that weeks and weeks ago before any of us knew that these tapes existed? Yes, me. Wheat is saying something extremely confirmatory, and she said it 40 years ago. The first call that ever came to their house came on that phone line. Berkowitz found their freaking name in the phone book. It's confirmed.
And the rest of them all came on the switchboard.
Did anyone ever call you Wheaties?
Only in an obscene fashion. Wheaties, Breakfast of Champions. And there was a great deal of teasing about that when I was in North Dakota. Because we went someplace and everybody there was a little bit high. And they John introduced me as Wheat, my sister Wheat, also known as Mickey. And they started with Wheaties, Breakfast of Champion type stuff. Just, you know,
They ever call your brother Wheaties?
no.
There we go. Did anybody ever call your brother Wheaties? What was my surmisation a couple weeks ago before I heard this tape? That what if his I asked you guys, the crowd, what if his nickname wasn't even Wheaties? What if Berkowitz used that as a troll to make fun of him? Now you're hearing Wheat Carr say the same exact thing, that people would call her Wheaties as a troll. So clearly, it's possible that my thesis is correct there. Oh my God. I haven't listened to any of this before. This is new.
My brother was John or JC. His name is John Charles Christopher Carr, and in the Air Force there were so many Johns, they started calling him JC. And when he was a sergeant, the guys that were working under him said he was JC because he was Jesus Christ, and they were and he was perfect as far as he was concerned. They may not have thought so, but that was where that was at. I asked Linda recently, and she said that there was a dirty joke going around about, well, it's not really going around. It's ever since they started their silly television commercials, however long ago. And he used to say that he happened to like Wheaties cereal. I told him that I felt that was cannibalistic. But he liked the cereal, so he would say, Wheaties, Breakfast of Champions.
Wheat's got sense of humor here. She actually has a real sense of humor. Here, Eric. What's up, bud? Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Fix your audio, and then we'll get it. Just keep on working on that.
So maybe some sick person called him Wheaties for that reason, but it doesn't make sense to me. The other things that are in there, that letter really was a dead giveaway. That is the letter that convinced 2 cops, 1 detective, and 1 dispatcher and 1 civilian that it was the same person. It all makes sense. Everything in that letter points exactly to where he is.
I guess you're still friendly with Linda.
Wow. Let's see, Eric. Eric, you can we
you
hear
hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. What's up?
Okay, I had something plugged in. This is fascinating.
Absolutely
I
fascinating.
made some points. It has been said by someone today that she does not trust, as of today, to be wary of homicide detective Hank Chinati and the North Dakota detective Gardner. Somebody had said that to me.
Okay.
But when she speaks and says that her brother did not commit suicide, she gives an analysis. Now, this is 1979. This is after Chinati was out in North Dakota and describes how it could not have been a suicide, but a murder. And that's not reported by Terry in his book till 1987. And Chinati was a top homicide detective. It didn't make sense the way the body fell.
Right. Well, Wheat was trained, Wheat was, she was into law enforcement. So, this.
Yeah, but it's interesting that today, supposedly, she is wary of Chinati and Gardner. They're not to be trusted.
Well, I don't think that she is being that granular about it, to use my favorite word. I don't think that she's remembering the specific thing that Chinati said about her brother not being a suicide, and then I don't think that that's entering into her mindset. I think that he was just out there investigating, therefore he's suspect.
Right. Now, the thing is this. First little thing, then I have a really major query. I have to query it, even though I think she's very honest and everything, and she probably suffered, undoubtedly, losing the whole family. But when they say occult, if he was taking lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, and drugs like that, in that 70s era, that became a pseudo mysticism. It doesn't mean it was part of an occult group, like drop out, kick in. I forget what it was. Get on a trip, baby, I'm high. The Beatles putting Aleister Crowley on the album cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and everything like that. Then about him hating his father. You know, people can be very superficial in life. My mother once said to me in Italian, chiudi la bocca, close the mouth about family and everything. People won't understand and they'll come back and hurt you. He might have been disgruntled with his father, might have worn his heart on his sleeve, and they walk away saying he has a daddy problem or he hates his father, and that wasn't really the truth.
Right.
But here's my important questions. Tell me if I've missed something. Did she call the police to investigate what had happened to these dogs? Did she tell the police? I mean, these are horrific bestiality murders.
I don't really know. I don't think that she did. I don't think that,
Well,
she
if she's with the police, why wouldn't she have give Deagle's name as a suspect or something like that? I mean, she's not just describing a guy who runs a dog over with his car. Absolute sadism.
I don't know. And, and I have to say that this may sound hard, but unless it has something to do connected to Son of Sam, I don't really care.
Well, I understand you, but be careful because this is associated. She's associated with the Son of Sam. I'm not saying she's guilty. For me, she's innocent, but it's associated with the Son of Sam. And you have to question if something this serious takes place, what is missing? You don't call the cops on the way your two dogs are tortured, especially the one found in the house. And then she's run off the road and somebody shoots at her in her driveway. Did she go to the police?
I don't know. It doesn't sound like she did.
Well, she was with the cops.
All great questions. I mean,
somebody shoots a gun at you and you don't. You see, can I say something? I'm not trying to say she's guilty, but there is a psychological trait. A friend of mine in Merseyside in the world, capital is Liverpool, Birkenhead. His son is accused of sexually abusing a girl. He didn't do it in the playground, a little boy. A little girl is witness. She's about 10, 12 years of age. The father says, no, she's not testifying. She wants to put this unfortunate event behind her. What is the occupation of the father? He's a cop, a detective. I later find out from a woman who was a directress of mine in the theater, and she lived up there with a boyfriend. That cop was a drug mule. He was a rogue cop. Many times, cops, even if it happens to their own family especially, don't want to draw attention to themselves because they might be involved in something illegal.
Who knows? I mean,
I find it strange she doesn't call the police. She's almost run off the road. She's shot at in her driveway.
Maybe we'll get answers one of these days.
I'm not saying she's guilty, but it's very, very odd behavior.
Well, I do agree with you in one sense that somebody is lying vis-a-vis the Fred Deagle dog story here. Somebody's lying because she says it happened, he says it didn't. So somebody is not telling the truth. I'm not prepared to say who that is. I don't know who that is. But it's clear that not everybody's being totally truthful with these investigators, and we need to keep that in mind as well. Eric, we have a lot to get through, and we're almost at an hour and a half, so I kind of want to move on.
I'll leave off. I got
all right.
Across.
Thank you very much, Eric. We'll talk to you soon, my friend. If anyone else wants to call in, please feel free. We're going to get through the rest of the tape now.
We still speak to her. She's now engaged to someone else. I think Linda goes through guys the way my brother went through girls. I don't mean that nastily.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I've spoken to her in the last few weeks. And it just because I honestly feel that Linda knows more of what went on than anybody else. That Linda, I believe that Linda, the only other person that would know anything more. Now it had to be in 3 weeks, I must have spent 100 hours just sitting down and talking to John, and Michael too. See, and Linda called me up to warn me right after Michael's accident. She says, they killed John, they killed Michael. So Michael fell asleep. And
So here she is saying Michael fell asleep. Interesting, because didn't Maury tell us that she was insisting that it was a murder in The Ultimate Evil? I remember reading that in The Ultimate Evil. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody fact check me, please, there. But I remember Maury saying that she wanted the case opened. It was murder. She's very clearly saying now here, 2 years after the fact. No, this isn't that long after Michael's death. He fell asleep.
I believe Michael fell asleep. My husband went over the car, and he was a detective for 8.5 years till his wife managed to get him bounced. And he says that he can't see anything. There's no skid marks, no damage on the passenger side of the car.
So Jack is saying she doesn't know what happened. She's guessing. Well, it doesn't sound like she's guessing here, Jack. She's telling us that her husband, John McCabe, the detective from Yonkers, went down, and she's giving a very clear account of what was found. It doesn't sound like a guess to me at all right here.
Nothing to indicate that it's anything else. There's a lot to indicate Michael fell asleep. Michael had been working 16 to 20 hours a day for roughly anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. Michael was exhausted that night when I was talking to him on the telephone. I was trying to convince him not to go out because he sounded so tired. Because I was on the phone with him until 12:30, quarter to 1. And John says he went through John was on his way home about 1 o'clock and he saw Michael going out.
She means John McCabe.
Michael was not into drugs. Michael didn't drink, so Michael didn't get drunk and pass out.
What kind of work did he do?
He was actually running all of the executive part of telephone answering service.
So I want to talk real quick about this right here. So this shooting of Untermeyer Park, you guys are not going to believe this, so I probably shouldn't even tell you the story. But I was once talking to a guy who told me that when he was about 14 years old, it was 1977, 76, something like that, somewhere around that era, that he was in Untermeyer Park shooting at squirrels, and he accidentally shot a police car, the window out of a police car on the aqueduct. So, and he just told me that story. He had no idea of the ultimate evil. He had no idea of the story about McCabe. He was just a guy from Yonkers telling me a story about Untermeyer Park. So anyway, believe it or not, but that actually did happen in my life.
For the last year and a half or more, almost 2 years.
You know why he went to the city that late?
Michael liked to dance. He was an excellent dancer. So he probably went down just to dance for an hour or two, relax, unwind, and then come home.
You know where places he used to go in New York?
Studio 54. Really. He played a game with his name, which was when he was in high school, he traced back the family tree thing back to the Ukraine and decided that he was a baron. And
Baron?
because he found some baron who had been made a baron from being born on the wrong side of the blanket to royalty. And it was actually what our name was in Russia 100 years ago.
And what was it?
And
What was it?
he used it for things like, you call up Studio 54 or someplace similar and say, this is Baron Mikhail von Zaranowski III, and you get a reservation.
There we go. Michael Vale Baron Charnkowski. I just had to do it since she did it. So here's something that I want to combat. Now, Lazarus, you're a buddy. I'm not angry at you. Whoops. But all right, Slater hung out at Studio 54. Who gives a shit? So did Sammy Davis Jr. So did Frank Sinatra. So did Lauren Bacall. So did Mick Jagger. Were they connected to Mike Carr? I mean, come on. This is the old era of true crime research, Lazarus, where just because two people hung out at some same place, that means they were connected. This is what they're trying to do to me right now, saying that my dad was Berkowitz's military intelligence handler because he was in Korea 10 years before Berkowitz. So what I'm saying, Lazarus, I ain't angry at you, okay? And I don't even know if you care if I'm angry at you or not. That's not the point here. But the point is we need to get out of the gutter of true crime research that Maury Terry put us in, with his innuendos, with his selective editing, with his complete misinformation. I don't care that Herman Slater hung out at Studio 54. It means nothing.
You say this is Michael Carr, they don't give you a reservation. So he used it like that, and he liked to go to nice places, and he liked to meet girls, and he liked to dance, and he liked to impress people with how he didn't drink and drank Perrier water instead. So that was, that was Michael.
You're talking about Linda. Did you ever meet Terry Gardner?
Only on the telephone. And I have to tell you, I'm not too thrilled because I think Terry Gardner had too much confidence in the police. I think Terry Gardner legitimately feels he has a legitimate homicide investigation going on.
Interesting. So she's dissing Gardner here. She's saying Terry Gardner is essentially like, I don't know, from what I'm gleaning, like a small time cop who thinks that he's in a something bigger than he is. So he's taking it way too far. That's an interesting insight. Never heard that one before.
Very honestly, I wish that they had said it was a suicide and let it go away. 'Cause someday I have to sit down and tell John's daughter. Some clown is going to say something to her about her father. And that's why I want it resolved. If I can say to her, your father was messed up on drugs, he got involved with the wrong people, and he did something wrong, I'll say that. But I'd much rather say that's a bunch of lies. You know, but then again, it's not a bunch of lies, well, whatever.
Have you spoken to Terry lately? Terry Gardner?
I spoke to him the day that these articles came out in the paper. My lawyer says I lost my head. I got hysterical. It was his birthday, and the first thing that jumped out in my face was, did John Carr, did John Carr, did John... I don't know if you've ever seen it, your first article.
I don't think I ever saw that one. You're talking about sometime around October 12th, then?
Yeah, I'm talking about October 12th. Obviously, on my brother's birthday, I was thinking about my brother. I walked into the store. Yeah, here. This is the one that's the 12th, yes. I walked into the store and saw the headline and then just briefly glanced at it. The first thing I saw was John Carr an accomplice? Was John Carr...
Holy cow. You know, this is very interesting insight into Maury Terry. He chose to have that article printed on his birthday, on John Carr's birthday. That was a cognitive decision that they made. I almost will guarantee that they did that on purpose. And if they did, they were trolling the cars, and that's fucked up big time.
Carr involved with Berkowitz. Did John Carr commit suicide? That's the first thing I saw. I got hysterical in the store. I came home. My husband was down in the city trying to get Michael's wallet, and nobody was home. And I had to go up to the school for the other kid in an hour. And I couldn't get my lawyer, couldn't get my mother, couldn't get anybody to talk to, so I called North Dakota. And he told me at that point that he told me on the phone that he has a suspect, someone he believed that John was in great fear of. He wouldn't tell me the name.
Did he tell you where he is?
That's Reeve Rockman, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't. You know, he said he couldn't locate the person right now. So it could be anywhere.
And he never told you any names or anything?
No, he never told me any names. And I asked him, did he believe John to be involved in David Berkowitz? And he says, well, there's people out here that now say John was talking about Berkowitz 2 years ago. And I said, that would mean John. It just didn't make any sense.
So she's having the same cognitive dissonance that we are. There's nothing in those tapes of North Dakota that indicates that Berkowitz had anything whatsoever to do with North Dakota, but the cops said it, right? And Maury Terry said it, and now they're saying it to Wheat, and she's getting that same sense of cognitive dissonance that I got, and that maybe you got. That there was nothing to do with Berkowitz out there. It was just completely fictitious.
To me, because if they're saying this now, after Maury Terry's out there with $10,000 or $15,000 advance from the Gannett chain to buy information, and the people that are saying these things are the same people which I'm killing myself for it. Now, 2 months ago, I destroyed a list of names in John's handwriting with amounts of money owed to him. The only thing I have is one formal witness, a photocopy of an IO.
Interesting. So she's saying that a lot of people owed money to John, and that could be why they're talking. And Maury Terry had money. Again, allegations. Interesting. Never heard of this.
From one person out there. And this, I know that when I was out there in 76, he gave this person, I brought out $500 to be given to this person for his business thing. And then I have this other IOU that's for $200. And I know from other times he's given him 100 here and 100 there, 100 here. Now whether he was buying drugs from him or he was actually investing in this coffee house restaurant, I don't know.
You know who?
But I do know that now all these people are saying these things, and they're all people that owe John money.
Remember what the names of any of those people were?
One of them is Guy Turkey. Turkey.
Now she's talking about Tom Taylor, who we've just been dealing with. So she's making the allegation third hand, right, obliquely, that Maury Terry went out there with Gannett newspaper money and paid off all of John's friends to give them a story that he wanted to hear. Now, is this within the realm of possibility? Hell yes. Have you seen Maury Terry's interview of David Berkowitz, where he just gives him the answers and then Berkowitz vomituses them back to him? I think this is actually believable right here, what she's saying, given the context that we've learned. Again, imagine hearing these tapes without our video series the last year and a half, giving you context.
His name is Turkey, I don't know. He's a musician. And he came to John's funeral. And Terry told me something Turkey had told him happened. And Turkey said that I was there when it happened. Now, what he said was, he said, John said I could kill Sam. He makes me so angry. And that happened after we came home from the cemetery. And Michael said it. See, Michael resented my father. My father is not an easy person to live with. And some of the evaluation of the police where they have said that he's a little bit nuts is true.
So here she is saying that her father wasn't an easy person to get along with and that he was a little bit nuts, and she's admitting it. Doesn't mean he was involved in Son of Sam in any way. It just means that he might not have been the nicest father in town. Doesn't mean anything in regards to Son of Sam. See, again, we're getting away from the Maury Terry style of research. Was if someone was a bad guy on one day, then he's a murderer the next, right? If someone has the same last name of someone in New Rochelle, that means he's connected to someone in Yonkers with the same last name. That's Maury Terry style research. We're getting away from that.
But he's not nuts in a dangerous way. He's nuts in a way that he quit school when he was 12 years old, so he's entirely self-educated. And he does read a lot. And he probably would have made a fantastic cop because he has some excellent instincts, excellent street sense.
That's funny that she mentions that he would have made an excellent cop. Mike Lorenzo said something kind of similar in our video together. He said that he was organizing his own busts, that he would that he would call in busts and they would be good busts. It's really, really interesting that what we're actually finding is a lot of synchronicity and harmony with her story and what we have found in Yonkers. Nothing contradictory, and certainly nothing that throws any suspicion on her in this tape.
But had no education. Got a GED somewhere along the line, but he could never finish the police test. So he's always playing cop. So Michael hated that.
You didn't quit school.
No, I didn't.
The audio's starting to get a little low, and we're almost at the end.
I have, I think, 3 associate's degrees, and one of them is criminal justice. Because at one point I wanted to be a cop. So I was
All right, guys. This is officially at the end of the tape. We have 30 seconds left, and it's probably all from here lowering in volume. So I don't think that there's any value in listening to hissing for 45 seconds. So listen, I want to open the floor. No one ever calls in. How come it's always Eric that calls in? How come I never get calls from anybody? Don't we want to interact and reason together and discuss this and have fun and all this kind of stuff? Even critics call in. Anyway, so wow. So, okay, so Jack Myers brings up an interesting point. The biggest question about Wheat is the motorcycle club incident. I've actually been thinking about that, Jack. Here's what I'm thinking. Zano says that it's Berkowitz. He says it twice. He actually says it more than twice. He says it 3 times. And he says that the guy who shot Stacy was stocky, just like Berkowitz. That's on the Zano tape, clear for everybody to hear. I'm going to assume that that's true. Why? Because I have a feeling that he is going to tell detective investigators the truth. And probably with Maury Terry, he would not be quite so truthful, or maybe Maury Terry manipulated Tommy into telling his story. But Tommy has already given 2 stories, and I believe the story he told to the cops, because when you're speaking to the cops, a lot more is on the line than if you're speaking to a reporter. So having said that, he said that the shooter at he said the shooter of Moskowitz, Berkowitz, okay, and we know Berkowitz was there that night. He got the ticket. We know he was there. That the guy was wearing a wig. So by July 31st, 1977, Berkowitz was wearing a wig. August 6th, 1977, the incident in Yonkers where he looks for Mickey Carr by name at the biker club. He's wearing a wig, carrying a gun. Sounds very much similar to the Moskowitz shooter. And I see nothing mysterious now about him asking for her as Mickey, because as we're learning from these tapes, her name was Mickey. She didn't go around as Wheat. Like, my name is Luis, right? Everybody makes fun of me because my real name is Luis, as if a person can't use their nickname, right? My name's Luis Manuel Grossman. I've been going as Manny ever since I'm a kid. It's exactly the same as Wheat Micheline Carr. She was never known as Wheat. She was known as Mickey. So if he was asking around about her around town, like she surmises, and which actually I can envision that very clearly in my head, him finding out about her name, of course he would ask for her by Mickey. So him knowing her name Mickey didn't mean that he had personal knowledge of her beyond that. So I actually think he was going to shoot Wheat Carr that day. And August 6, 1977 was an incredibly busy day in the Son of Sam case, because that was also the day that Sam Carr went down to the 109th precinct and reported David Berkowitz's name. Now, of course, could he have known all this? Probably not. But probably from the minute he got that parking ticket to the minute he got arrested, he was freaking out completely and acting in all sorts of irrational ways. So I think that explains that. Now, Jack, we can disagree. You can disagree. All we have is the context that we have, the recordings, and that police report. But we have a lot more context now to make sense of that police report, given Tommy Zano's recollection that it was Berkowitz, and Wheat Carr saying that Berkowitz was essentially stalking her around town. So excellent question, excellent comment, Jack. Thank you so much. Anybody else out there with anything here? Zano seems to be a hustler, so it's not out of character, Jack. I don't think he ever had credibility. It could be. All right, so Jack's on the line. Hey, Jack, how you doing, buddy? So it's not out of character, Jack. I don't think he ever had. Jack, please lower your volume on YouTube and let's you're on the air. We can't hear you, Jack, unfortunately. Get your audio settings prepared. There's a little wheel at the bottom that looks like a ship wheel, Jack. Press that.
Is that better, Manny?
There we go.
Okay.
How are you?
Good. I just got off work, so I haven't shaved or anything.
That's okay. That's okay.
But interesting show tonight.
Thank you.
I think the piece with Wheat regarding the motorcycle club is just so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But Berkowitz, there had been things going on that were very strange before that, and before the Moskowitz shooting, and before the ticket. Understand that you may have had the Carr's dog being shot. Also, when the letter started to be written, you have the mention about Wheaties. It appears that someone in the
he said
letter,
wheat. He said wheat, not Wheaties. He said wheat.
Didn't he say John Wheaties in the letter?
In the Son of Sam letter, or in the
Yes.
letters from the apartment? Yeah, in the Son of Sam letter, it said
in
Wheaties.
the Son of Sam letter.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were
But
talking
that
about
was long before the Moskowitz shooting.
It was 2 months before the Moskowitz shooting.
So if David Berkowitz did write that letter, he's trying at that point to frame John Carr, or to bring John Carr into the Son of Sam situation.
Right.
Let me bring up a slightly different alternative theory. It's very possible that John Carr's connection to Berkowitz was simply drugs.
I can see that.
The drugs were being coming to New York and then being shipped out to one of the distribution places, which would have been Minot. And Carr was handling that, being a former Yonkers guy, and that's your connection. What if Carr had burned Berkowitz on some kind of transaction, and Berkowitz can't get to him now directly, so he's taking it out on the Carr family? That would make perfect sense if, in the beginning, Carr and Berkowitz had perpetuated this campaign of terror against the Nettos. Then
True, but
Berkowitz is turning it around and doing the same thing. He's shooting the dog. He's firebombing the house. And when
right.
that's not getting what he needs, he goes out on the street looking for Mickey, for Wheat.
Right. I mean, listen, it's all possible. Like I said, I am searching, Jack, just like you are, for
Right.
answers.
Right.
And we're just trying to deal with instead of going out into the ether. I'm not saying that you're being very totally grounded here, but we're trying to just deal with what we have in front of us. And I could see Berkowitz for sure hooking up with Carr in the drug trade. Absolutely.
Right, because they were both users, especially John, very heavily. And now
Correct.
he's without a job. He gets bounced out of the Air Force. How is he supporting himself and his habit?
Right. It's clear that he was a major drug pipeliner from New York to Minot. That I think is clear from these transcripts, and that could explain a lot. And I could definitely see Berkowitz and Carr hooking up in Yonkers. Somehow it had to do with drugs. So I guess that's all we can do is just leave it there, because
Right.
what else can we do but speculate, and we can do that till the cows come home. So
Sure. And regarding Tommy Zano,
okay.
what I'm seeing there is, if you listen to the tape, he's very hesitant. He's lowering his voice. He's very uncomfortable telling this to the cops. He's told a completely different story
Totally.
in public.
Right.
I think you have to understand the time of this interview. It's December of '79. Both Carr brothers are dead. Berkowitz has been in prison for some time. The cops are reluctantly going back into this case. And the information that they desperately want is that to confirm that Berkowitz did these crimes alone.
Right.
The last thing that Zano wants to do as a young business owner in Brooklyn, I think he had a body shop by that time,
Mhm.
is to stir up a hornet's nest, to get the police upset with him. And also possibly, if it was not Berkowitz, if it was someone else, as he described, somebody who was fast, lighter hair, smaller build, who had run away from that scene. He doesn't want the actual killer to come after him either. So
True.
he has a perfect reason for going along to tell the cops what they want to hear at that point in December of '79.
I could see that. I could absolutely see that.
Like, why fight that?
Right.
They want it to be Berkowitz. There's no more shootings.
I
He
mean,
doesn't need that trouble.
unfortunately, Tommy, who I was in contact with for a while before the previous video series cratered in on itself, having something to do with dirty dealings that someone tried to do with Tommy behind my back. Tommy, of course, is 100% above board. He had nothing to do with the dirty dealings. He was just as surprised as I was. He wanted nothing to do with it. He was just as shocked and disgusted by it. Tommy Zano was on the side of good in that. But he didn't tell me his story because we were going to come up with some sort of deal to bring a documentary out, and we were talking about
Right.
books and all that kind of stuff. But he told me a third story, the beginnings of a third story. So Tommy tells the story to the cops, as you say, and I could believe that it was pressured. But then he tells the story on investigative reports, the Maury Terry stuff, and then he started to tell me a totally different story. He was telling me that the Volkswagen was not across the park. The Volkswagen was actually parked right next to him, and that nobody ran through
Right.
the park. So I got a third story from Tommy, the partially third story from Tommy. So, I almost feel like, should I call Tommy up and ask him about this? I probably will, actually.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
Yeah,
Maybe he'll
because
come.
at this point, I think Tommy owes everyone an explanation as to
I
why
agree.
his story has changed.
And also,
The
this
interviewer
is
did a great job, Manny, the police interviewer, because they just didn't let him say, yes, it was Berkowitz. They re-questioned him like, well, what about the VW? And then
Right.
he said, I didn't see it.
Right. He wasn't even sure
But
about that.
what about why you were very impressed with how fast this person ran, insinuating that it couldn't have been Berkowitz because Berkowitz wasn't in that kind of shape.
Right.
And his answer was, well, I guess if you shoot somebody, anybody can run fast.
Right. So you are correct, Jack. And while you and I don't agree on everything about this case by a
No,
long
but we're
shot,
getting closer.
we're getting closer. And I think that these tapes are incredibly important, not only
Super important.
for that, for bringing people together in this case. Because now you and I have come to slightly different conclusions about his recording, but we both agree that Tommy Zano owes the Son of Sam community
He definitely does, because he's told more than one story, and until he straightens that out, he doesn't have credibility.
No,
and in the Maury Terry Son of Sam world, he has had credibility.
He's
for
the
over
one,
40
right?
years.
Thank you. He's the one that everybody uses to
Right.
say, hey, all right, fine. Maybe it wasn't John Carr at Lomino Damasi, and hey, maybe it wasn't. But Moskowitz was definitely not Berkowitz, because Zano said it.
Right.
You are absolutely correct. Zano, Tommy, if you're watching, if any of your surrogates are watching, you owe the Son of Sam world an explanation for this, and we're going to play the Tommy Zano recordings in a separate pop-up. So Jack, listen,
Moskowitz shooting has been so important, maybe in many ways more important than the others, because we got more information from that shooting.
Agreed.
And the other thing that needs to be looked at is, okay, if Tommy Zano's credibility is damaged at this point, let's take a look at the flip side, because Maury Terry did some good work on proving that Berkowitz physically could not have been in the park.
That's what I was going to say next, though, Jack. That's what I was going to say next, though.
Good.
No one has gone out to Brooklyn to fact check that. I am going to go out to Brooklyn and do a walk and talk. I'm not going to say when, because I have no idea. And with gas prices what they are, it may never happen. But somebody talk about what people owe the Son of Sam community. Somebody needs to go and find out where he parked at that meter, and then go walk to the shooting site and see if he actually could walk it. Because
Maury supposedly did and said it wasn't possible.
Right.
And he had Cecilia Davis's alleged statements that she backed him up that it wasn't possible.
Right. But
also that Berkowitz she said he looked like he was on a date. He was well groomed. The person doing the shooting that Zano saw and other people saw in the park was unkempt and disheveled looking.
True, but who knows? I mean, we've only gotten those reports through the filter of Maury Terry.
That's right.
So
right. They have to be checked.
We have to be checked. Listen, Jack, I got Gary on the line next, and we're coming up on
One more thing before I go.
Okay.
The other thing that bothers me here now is, why would Berkowitz continue on and commit that shooting after he got a ticket? That makes no sense unless he wanted to get caught.
Right. That's what I was going to say. He psychologically just wanted to get caught.
Right.
He was just making it happen somehow.
Right.
Anyway, Jack, listen, great call. I wish I could stay on longer, but we're coming on 2
Manny.
hours. No,
great
no
show.
problem.
I appreciate it.
No problem. Please keep on watching, and please keep on commenting and participating. We love it.
All right. You and Eric are doing a great job. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Talk to you soon, Jack. Thank you. Bye-bye. Gary.
Hey, everybody. I won't be long, Manny. I know you got to go to the bathroom. So real quick, I want to publicly apologize to Wheat. I can't believe it.
Well, I'm there too.
Yeah,
I'm there too.
Yeah, and remember in the recording about halfway through, and you mentioned this, that to save money on the phone listing back then, which I remember, being a former Verizon guy, she put John and Wheat on the same line, which pretty much cements Berkowitz mistaking Wheat as John's, middle name or
correct. Yeah, and I'd never heard until, and you guys saw my reaction in real time. Wheat said the first call they ever got was on that phone line, and I believe it. You know why? Because the Nettos got phone calls. And again, the video series of ours has shown the context wherein this stuff can actually make sense, and we can hear Wheat Carr and now believe her because we have other things to put into context. So yeah, it's amazing.
Right. And the third thing, and I cannot believe I forgot this. You're gonna shit when you hear this.
I hope I don't.
Before I was a technician in the phone company, I was a representative. I was a business representative. and I cannot believe I forgot this. Wheat Carr called in and got me on the line.
Really? Wait a
And
second.
I think she either added a business line or called it. No, it wouldn't be repair because I was a business representative. She called in to add a phone line. And I
Wow.
remember when I spoke to her, I didn't let on, but I froze. I didn't let on that I froze. I froze. And
Uh-huh.
I just took the call, took her information, got the order ready. Yeah. I
Wow.
can you believe I forgot this?
And now you're listening to her and you're like, "Wait, her accent's kind of sexy. It's too
Yeah.
bad too bad."
Call me strange, but I love
But
a girl with a Bronx accent. I don't know
there's
why.
I gotta say, there's something strangely and oddly alluring about Wheat Carr. I mean,
Yeah.
so at least the Wheat Carr of 1977 and
Mhm,
79.
mhm.
So anyway, Gary, you and I have a show we're doing on Monday. We're going to be doing our taxi driver show. I'm
Yeah,
looking really
everybody
forward to that.
watching, people call in. Mike Zaccola's probably going to call in.
Yeah, let's get
Moet,
some calls.
keep your promise and call in.
All
But we'll see.
right.
We'll see.
All right, Gary. So listen, I'll give you a call this weekend, my friend, so you and
Okay.
I can do our full on production meeting and we're going to kick ass on Monday. All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Gary. All right. Well, listen, guys, 2 hours. This was just a pop up. I figured it was going to be an hour long, but we had a absolute and 100% blast today, didn't we? I am just so thankful and so grateful to every one of you out there. You've just been so amazing. Your support, your positivity, your good vibes, and just the work that we're all doing together is really groundbreaking and historic. I mean, the things that we have done in this last year and a half together as a group really are something that I'm always going to remember in my life, because it will end eventually. Eventually we're going to run out of things to talk about. And I don't really have much of an interest in other cases. People always are trying to get me to get into other cases. No, the reason why this has been so magical is because this is personal for me, Son of Sam. And no, my father was not Berkowitz's military handler, but the case is personal. It took place in my backyard. It took place amongst people that I know, in the sense that I know these people. I grew up with them. These are my people. This is my area. And I'm also now a person who wants to right a historical wrong. This has become extremely personal for me. And we are now embarking on, again, the golden age of Son of Sam research. I don't think that the person who got these tapes quite envisioned the fact that it was going to blow Maury Terry's thesis to dust. But I can feel it out there, guys. I'm feeling it from you guys. I'm feeling it even from the Maury Terry fans. Something has shifted. Something has changed. And I think that you guys feel it too. So anyway, we're gonna rock and roll, and we're gonna continue on in this fight for Son of Sam truth. Because remember, until you face the battle, the war is your home. All right, guys, we'll see you on Monday unless something else comes up first. Take care. Thanks a lot.